Success is sweet, but the secret is sweat. There are no secrets to success. It is a result of preparation, hard work, and learning from failure. The hard work definitely paid off, and hard work always does. We can spend the next hour putting up inspirational quotes from famous people about how working hard will lead to success. We're told at work that we'll get promoted if we work harder. We're told in sports that if we just train more, we'll win that medal. And we're even told that if we just put ourselves out there enough, we'll find romantic partners that will fulfill all of our wildest dreams. The idea of success rewarding those who work for it is called meritocracy. It's the idea that rewards are merit-based, rather than based on something else like who you happen to know, who your parents are, or just dumb luck. And this idea is both incredibly appealing and the foundation of what most of us think of as the American dream. But is America really a meritocracy? Are we really rewarded solely based on how much effort we put into our lives? Welcome to Data Demystified. I'm Jeff Gallick, and in this episode, we're going to look at data about success and see what it says about just how meritocratic our country is. And in case you can't stick around for the details, the short answer is that our country does have some meritocratic features, but they are far less robust than you might think. In this episode, I'm going to try and provide the intuition to help you understand if and where meritocracy exists in our society. And if you stick around to the end, I'll even provide a partial solution to how we can make our country more meritocratic, something I think all of us likely want. So let's jump in and see how we'll think about meritocracy in this video. One very popular approach to thinking about this topic is to see how successful people are based on where they started their lives. And to keep things simple, we'll define success as income, as in how much money someone earns. Now, I know that's not the only way to think about success, but when people talk about the American dream, they're typically talking about financial success, so we'll go with it. Anyway, the idea is this: if our country were a true meritocracy, regardless of the conditions you were in when you were born, success should come to you if you just work hard enough. Now, let's be clear, meritocracy does not mean that everyone is successful, not by a long shot. It means that those who show the most merit are rewarded. Those who sit on the sidelines and slack off under a meritocratic system would not and should not see success. So on the face of it, what we're saying is that if our country is meritocratic, it shouldn't matter if you're born black or white, male or female, or rich or poor. If you work hard enough, you will find success. And one way we can make that idea explicit is by looking at something called income quintiles. Basically, we can take all people and sort them based on how much money they make. The top 20% are in the top quintile. The next 20% are in the fourth quintile, and so on, with the 20% earning the least amount of money in the bottom quintile. One way we can see if our country is meritocratic is to see if the income level of your parents influences your eventual income level. In other words, does being born rich mean that you're going to stay rich? And does being born poor mean that you're going to stay poor? And to be clear, if our country is truly meritocratic, it should not matter which quintile you were born into in determining which one you end up in. After all, there's no merit in being born rich or poor. That just happens to you. You don't earn that, and you didn't work for it. You just got it. So if everything were truly meritocratic, we would expect to see a chart like this. Starting on the left, if you were born in the bottom quintile to the poorest families, you would have an equal chance yourself of winding up being in any of the other 5 quintiles. You might work hard and earn a lot, or you might not and earn a little. If things are meritocratic, the fact that you were born poor shouldn't matter in determining if you become rich or not, because you could simply work hard and climb your way to the top. And the same is true for the other 4 quintiles. If you were born into a family that was in the middle of the pack, you're also just as likely to become poor or rich. And the same if you were born into a rich family. If you work hard, you'll stay rich, and if you don't work hard, well, you'll become poor. This is what a perfectly meritocratic system looks like. Again, just to be crystal clear, a meritocracy does not mean that everyone winds up earning a lot of money. In this case, it means that regardless of which family you happen to be born into, a rich one or a poor one, your likelihood of earning a lot or a little as an adult is the same. Okay, so now that you hopefully see what a true meritocracy would look like, let's see what our country actually looks like. But before we do that, if you could take a moment to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and click that little bell icon so that you don't miss out on any new content I put out, I'd really appreciate it. With that said, let's see what the data behind meritocracy in the US actually looks like. I'm going to be using data from a report put out by the Pew Research Center. I'll link to the report below if you want more details, but basically they analyzed data from thousands of people over decades and looked to see how incomes changed between parents and their children. So once the children themselves were adults, what influence did their parents' income have on their own eventual incomes? If our country is truly meritocratic, they should have found this exact chart that we saw before. Instead, this is what they found. Let me walk you through this starting in the middle. If when you were a kid your parents were in the middle quintile, your outcomes actually look pretty meritocratic. You are maybe slightly more likely to be in a higher quintile yourself, but this middle bar doesn't look all too different from what we would expect in a true meritocratic society. Some people made it to the top, and some people fell to the bottom. To be clear, this doesn't necessarily mean that things are in fact meritocratic, but we sure couldn't point to these data and say that things aren't meritocratic. The story, however, changes quite a bit at the extremes of this chart. Let's first look at the bottom quintile. These are people who were born into the poorest families. For them, 43%, more than double what we would expect in a meritocracy, remained at the bottom, and only 4% made it to the top. This, in no uncertain terms, is not meritocratic. Unless you make the argument that children born into poorer families are somehow inferior to children born into wealthier families, the only explanation is that children born into poorer families are somehow disadvantaged, as in they are starting with an anchor that holds them back from success. But this is totally against the idea of meritocracy. In a meritocracy, the only thing that is supposed to matter is whether you work hard or not whether you happen to be born into a poor family. Being born poor is not a fault of someone. It doesn't have anything to do with hard work. It's just the roll of the dice. And yet being born poor results in people staying poor, much more than a meritocratic society would predict. We can come up with all sorts of explanations for why people born into poor families remain poor, but no matter what story you tell, the conclusion is always the same. If the income of your parents determines your eventual income, things are not meritocratic. Merit has nothing to do with who you were born to, but this key outcome of income, the hallmark of the American dream, is determined by who you were born to. Can some people escape poverty and succeed? Of course, we see that up here. But the likelihood that a poor person will rise to the top of our society in terms of income is very, very low. And what about the other side of this? What about being born to a wealthy family? Well, here the story is the exact opposite. People born into the top quintile to families who earned the most when they were children stay in that top quintile 40% of the time. Again, double what we would expect in a true meritocracy. And only 8% of them ever fall all the way to the bottom. And again, this isn't a meritocracy. If becoming rich is easier when you were born to rich families, that suggests that the wealthy have some inherent advantage over everyone else. In a meritocracy, being born into a rich family shouldn't result in you having a leg up on people. Only hard work should. After all, you didn't do anything to earn being born to the family you were born to. That just happened. So again, unless you want to claim that children born to wealthy families are somehow inherently superior, we see that our country falls far short of a meritocratic ideal. Instead, what we see is that our country and the society we've built has some of the American dream, to be sure. After all, people from all income levels can make it to the top, and that is not true in other countries and other societies. But it is also far from the ideal of what the American dream entails. The idea that everyone starts at the same place and only hard work determines success. We very clearly see that one critical component of success has absolutely nothing to do with hard work, and everything to do with who you happen to be born to. If you were lucky to be born into a top quintile family, you are 10 times more likely to stay in the top quintile than if you were unlucky and were born into a bottom quintile family. That isn't meritocracy. That's a system that disadvantages the poor just for being poor, and advantages the rich just for being rich. So what do? How do we fix this? I think most of us want a true meritocracy, where any child from any family can become successful just on the merits of their hard work. But how do we get there? I think it'll come as no surprise to many of you that the answer is education. The same report broke down these results based on those who did and who didn't earn a college degree, and the results are striking. There's a lot here, so I'll walk you through the key parts. Let's start with the bottom quintile. Someone born to a poor family and who didn't earn a college degree is nearly 50% likely to stay in the bottom quintile. That's compared to only 10% of those in the bottom quintile who did earn a college degree. In other words, if you were born poor and want to make it out of poverty, education is a clear path to doing so. And it's also worth highlighting that only 3% of those without a college degree make it from the bottom quintile to the top, whereas 10% of those with a college degree do the same. Those are huge differences, and they propagate throughout the entire income distribution. For the second quintile of parents' incomes, people were 4 times more likely to wind up in the top quintile if they had a college degree compared to those who didn't. 2.5 times more likely for the middle quintile of parents' income, and about 2 times more likely for both the fourth and top quintiles. The point is that with a college degree, income growth is very possible, albeit still not at the levels of a true meritocracy. Education isn't the only solution to these massive disparities in success that results from family wealth, but it sure does help. What I hope you take away from this is that even though some people do make it to the top, even from the very bottom, the deck seems to be stacked against them just because of the family they happened to be born into. When we talk about the American dream and about meritocracy, we tend to mean that grit and hard work is all that is needed to succeed. But these data clearly show us that this just isn't true in our country. Yes, grit and hard work probably make a big difference, but they aren't enough to overcome the anchoring that happens based on the roll of the dice that resulted in someone being born poor or someone being born rich. Now, there's a lot more to say about the lack of true meritocracy in our country, including what are its causes, how it is strikingly different based on a person's race, and what could be done to help fix this problem. If those are topics you want to hear about, please leave a comment below, and I'll make sure to both keep the conversation going and to research and make new videos meant just for you, my viewers. Finally, as always, thanks so much for watching.